Is this on? So, in today's podcast, I'm going to be talking to another good friend of mine. His name is Aditya Nataraja. He is currently the Senior Manager for Programs with Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiatives, short for APPI. He works with his team which provides grants for NGO or non-governmental organizations. Before that, he became a member of board and manager at an incubation center at IIT Patna. This incubation center is a collaboration between the Central Government and Bihar state government. The incubation center is specifically focused on incubating ventures in the medical electronics space. The objective is to ensure that if one has an idea in medical electronics, the incubation center at IIT Patna is the place to be in to test the idea out. And before that, he was quite active in the venture capital space as an investment principal. He led a team of investment professionals in making early growth and to growth stage investments. So, Adi, welcome to my podcast.
Thanks, Karthi. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Adi. So, you are quite active for few years in the NGO space in India. Can you tell me what is happening in the NGO space right now in India?
The NGO space in India has been growing since the 1980s. Roughly, the NGO space has been active for around 40 years now, in a formal sense of the word. Right?
Right.
Before that, there have been other uh, movements, like freedom movement, for example. It was it was started by let's say a group of people or whoever it was. But in a sense, if you look at it, there's some parallel of that. If you look at it, is being done by the NGO space in India.
Right.
Uh, to to say that there is a space in the country to actually do things that that the government has by the very structure of the government is not able to do a few things, or the government's services and their abilities actually stop at a certain place. Our country is unimaginably vast, and uh, you know the the country is extremely densely populated. So reaching out to each and every person, each and every mm, uh, you know citizen of the country is a big task even for the government. So you need what is called organizations that reach out to these people,
I see.
not in the sense of, let us say, like a typical company would reach out to people to say, hey, buy my product or buy my service, right?
Right.
These are the two things that we are offering. Yes, those solve some certain needs of that person, but there are more issues in the country that need a humanitarian approach, that need a, a human centric approach, and not as looking at a person in the country just as a unit of economics. How much can this person pay, or how much can this person, you know uh, uh, how much cost can this person afford.
Right.
That is typically a company's approach to things.
Right.
You need somebody who will take a governmental approach to saying, so are you getting access to basic needs? Are you getting access to, let's say, like they say, roti, kapda, makan, which is food, shelter, clothing, and are you getting access to health and education?
Right.
Right. So this needs to be sorted out by somebody who typically is a government. Uh, but in many cases, like I already described, the government is not able to reach out to all the constituents of the country
Correct.
for various reasons, historical reasons, legacy reasons, and also uh, uh, you know logistical reasons.
Right.
Um, so you need a space like the NGO space, which operates in the country,
Right.
to ensure that the last mile actually gets connected to the main system that we are so fond of, or we are always talking about.
Right. So basically, these NGOs exist here primarily to sort of fill out the last mile gap that one might
Yes,
witness in a country
yes.
as expensive and as complex as ours, right?
Yes, typically you would say that that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, the NGOs are also very closely involved in saying, "Hey, you know what? What is the this is what the government has done
Mm-hmm.
now, but this is not the right thing.
Right.
The people don't want this. So
Right.
somebody has to raise voices against the policies and the things about uh, what the government is doing or not doing. For example, right to education
Mm-hmm.
should have been a basic right,
Right.
or right to information.
Right.
It is our government. We have voted this government to power. This
Correct.
government is supposed to be answerable to us.
Correct.
So right to information should have been like a fundamental thing in our constitution,
Correct.
but it wasn't there. So some of these people came together and said, "Hey, here we need right to information." So things like Narega, for example,
Right.
which is National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme,
Right.
which ensures that uh, people who are living in the rural parts of the country
Right.
have access to a minimum of 100 days of employment
Right.
um, for because when they're not, if they're farmers and
Mm-hmm.
they're not involved in the cropping
Mm-hmm.
season, then what do they do in the rest of the time? So the kinds of NGOs that we were talking about and what do they do, right?
Right.
Uh, one of the things that a common framework to understand what NGOs do in the country is three things.
Mm-hmm.
There are three Hindi words that actually describe this: Seva, Nirman, and Sangharsh.
Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Seva is service,
Right.
Nirman is creation,
Mm-hmm.
and Sangharsh is fighting, right? I mean, literally, it says fighting, but
Right.
it's a struggle, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it, seva is you do service, right? If there is a healthcare that needs to reach the last tribal farmer of some village in rural parts of the country,
Correct.
then you provide a local hospital and then ensure that that service reaches that person. So
Right.
NGOs do that.
Right.
Then there is, I mean, I'm just taking a simplistic example, but typically this is what NGOs do. They do seva,
Mm-hmm.
and then there is something called nirman,
Mm-hmm.
which is you set up institutions
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that the to ensure that will the people can help themselves,
Right.
right? So
Sort
you
of a
you create
self-service society.
you can say that
Okay.
like most of the so what you see in the country is at the well, what we actually what is very in our face is the central government state government structures, right?
Correct.
um, that is nothing but if tomorrow you or I stand for elections and we
Mm-hmm.
win and you or I become a minister, for example,
Right.
it is basically us governing ourselves,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
At some point, this chain breaks down
Mm.
at various points. When you go down to the villages or these places, this chain of self governance kind of breaks down because logistically and various other reasons, they're not able to reach to that particular point.
Right.
So you create institutions that serve the people in various
Mm-hmm.
formats.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of live so it could even, I mean, I'm talking at a very systemic institutional level.
Mm-hmm.
It could even be, let us say, one of us decides to live a vegan life,
Right.
for example.
Right.
We become a source of inspiration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
if you've seen somebody who's living a vegan life,
Mm-hmm.
right, you will at least try to, even if you're not or I am not able to follow it completely,
Right.
we are very enamored and we are very you know we are very admiring of that person who's following that particular policy or principle in his or her life, right?
Right.
So they become an institution of sorts. So you go to them for anything vegan, you'll pick up the phone and call that person, right? Hey, what do you think? Right? So living life based on that is also on a principle is also institutionalizing that thought process,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
that is and NGOs actually do that. NGOs have this in their DNA that they
Mm-hmm.
will live by a principle,
Right.
right? And then there is what I call Sangharsh, or
Mm-hmm.
actually, this is a very well established framework in the country. I heard it somewhere and I'm repeating it. This is about challenging injustice, struggling against power that is
Mm-hmm.
working not exactly in the interests of the people,
Right.
right? You could see during the recent the sterlite problem in Tuticorin
Yeah, correct.
I think a few years ago,
Yeah.
couple of years ago, I guess, where police actually hired snipers to kill
To
citizens.
shoot
So
citizens. Yeah.
you're
Yeah. Saw
waging
that.
a war against citizens, really. So somebody has to stand up for this,
Right.
right? Um, while that was a very in your face kind of a thing, even till date, we don't have, like, I don't know what is going on in the legal system. Where is that case? What is happening? But I can guarantee you,
Mm-hmm.
there are a couple of NGOs, if we dig deeper, who are working on that case,
Oh, I see.
who
Okay.
are saying, why is there police injustice? Let's figure out what's happening. Pull up what's the nexus between corporates and government and police,
Right.
right? So how does that work? So somebody is trying their best to work for the people, right?
Right. Right.
So
So,
essentially, NGOs are doing this at a
okay.
very broad level.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds very fascinating to me at least. And actually, I didn't know there was this kind of framework that exists and what it does. And my assumption, at least my thinking, was that if you when I hear the word NGO or anything like that, I always associate them with social causes, right? So like preventing a girl child getting married younger, or trying to provide sort of create a healthier environment in villages, wherein they uh, uh, they set up these toilets in within the villages, so that they don't go and defecate outside and cause pollution and cause disease and things like that. So those are the general things that generally come to my mind, but it's interesting to hear that they are much more involved in this space, and trying to help these people. So that's really quite interesting. And
Yeah. I mean, just to kind
yeah,
of, I'm interrupting you, but I just want to get in on this. You said social causes,
yeah,
right? That is the key word there. What is social, right?
mm,
What is social? Social is what you do for the people,
right,
right? And for which people? What
right,
kind of people would you work for? So, do you support uh, somebody like a Vijay Mallya
mm-hmm,
taking 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, whatever crores
mm,
and fleeing the country, right?
mm,
So, do you need an NGO working for him?
yeah,
Obviously not.
obviously not, yeah.
But
Obviously.
do you need somebody who is, let us say, like you said, a girl child or building a toilet in a village, for
Mm,
example?
right,
Do you need an NGO doing that? Because there is no awareness in that village,
correct, yeah,
possibly.
mm,
Uh, or if there is awareness, there are probably no resources to build that toilet.
right,
Or if there are resources and there is awareness, then what is stopping them?
right,
Somebody has to work this value chain out and figure out where is the problem and address that problem,
right.
right? So
And
how do you go about doing this?
yeah,
That's where the social cause of the
right.
NGOs actually pervades through their actions.
So, so basically, like you said before, so these NGOs act like that last mile, because the governments cannot do themselves everything by themselves because of various restrictions and various reasons, right? Because they might not have the manpower, or they may not have the expertise to do those things in that particular space. So NGO steps in and does this. So
Yes.
so if NGOs are doing this, they are doing at a cost, right? So that's a cost involved in that, right? So there is no benefit. I mean, I wouldn't say benefit. Probably that's a wrong term to use. What I mean to say is like, okay, so this is not a company, right? So NGO is not a company. So they are essentially there to um, help those people who have not been helped for however years, and they're trying to educate them, they're trying to create awareness, whatever that may be for, and try to help them. So how do these NGOs um, balance those costs? Like, how, where do they get the funding, and how do they manage those resources? How do they do that? Does government help in? Does government does anything specifically to help the NGOs out, or is it primarily the NGO themselves driving these actions?
So this is a very interesting question, Karthi. I would like to break this down a little bit, and
Sure.
I'll take this piece by piece. Right.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
One part of the thing is NGOs are not companies. So what are NGOs? Right.
Right.
NGOs are either trusts, right,
Mm-hmm.
or societies or Section 8 companies. Now each of this is governed by different laws.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is, I think, the there are two kind of trusts. One is a central by your state, you can be passed as a trust. Your state has an act, and you could register with your state
Mm-hmm.
agencies, and you could be a trust, or you could be in the central government has an act, so you
Mm-hmm.
can be by the act of central government, you could be a trust.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, again, within trust there are public charitable trusts and there are private trusts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, private trust is what uh, is where when I was a venture capital professional,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all the funds used to be housed in that private trust.
Oh, I see.
The
Okay.
private trust used to be the holder of that. So
Okay.
that trust is different. These trusts are different. So these are
Oh.
public charitable trusts. Those are private trusts.
Oh, okay.
So there's a whole different. These are different worlds altogether.
Oh, I
Then
see.
there are societies,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then there is something called societies, which is again some, I think, 1882 or something. There's an Indian
Mm-hmm.
Societies Act or Indian Trusts Act or something, 1956 maybe. I don't remember right now.
Right.
But there are different acts governing trust societies and Section 8 companies.
Mm-hmm.
So NGOs and Section 8 company is a not-for-profit kind of a company where all the costs are only costs, right? You don't make a surplus. So if you make a surplus of income over costs,
Right.
you show it as surplus and use it in the costs next year,
Right. Okay.
or your uh, because there's no income tax
Correct.
concept for these people.
Right.
So that is where we step into the second part of the question, which is then if their income
Mm-hmm.
is tax exempt,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if they are registered as all your societies, your residents welfare associations, and all these are societies, for example,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Just going back and giving an example for societies.
Right.
Uh, if you're looking at income being tax exempt, then where is this income coming from for the NGOs? And
Right.
are there any basic rules governing this? Up to 25% of a NGO's income
Mm-hmm.
can be from revenue that they make. Like they can sell a product or something
Oh,
and
okay.
make 25% of their overall income. It has to be capped at that much.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They can't do more than that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like you're substituting, like you could have as well been a company, then if 100% of your income is
Right.
revenue,
Right. You might
then you
as well
might have
be a
as well
company.
been a company.
Yeah. Okay.
So cap it off at 25%, right?
Okay.
Then that is just a rule.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the NGOs are funded by, let's say, philanthropic firms,
Right.
uh, are funded by CSR of
Mm-hmm.
various companies.
Mm-hmm.
They are funded by foundations,
Right.
uh, and various such initiatives. There are also individual donors. There are,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know, but I don't know if you did it, but I did it when in my first job,
Mm-hmm.
when my first month salary came. I signed up with Greenpeace for a
Oh.
monthly ECS,
Oh, I see.
right,
Okay.
of some $100 or something.
Oh, okay.
So Greenpeace, I would give $100 because for somehow I felt environment is very close to my heart, and we
Okay.
should preserve it. And I'm not doing anything about it,
Right.
right? So there is this Greenpeace organization which does a lot of it, and I should do something that I can. So my first month salary, I had given 150 rupees, and that went as an ECS from my bank. I had to sign some
Oh.
form and all that,
Yeah, I
and they would
remember.
take 150
Yeah.
rupees per month. Even till date, I pay them some. I mean, it's become some other amount now,
Right.
but it goes, right?
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
organizations like these also exist, which run on individuals' monies from a monthly salary.
Right. Okay.
Right? There are also religious NGOs, obviously.
Right.
You know that I'm not talking about them at all. Uh,
Right. Right. Right.
the majority of contributions or charity in India, at least 80 to 90% of it, I
Mm-hmm.
can pull out the numbers, but I don't have them, goes to religious institutions.
Oh,
Could
I
be
see.
churches, temples, uh, yeah, mosques, or whatever, right?
Okay.
Gurudwaras or anybody. The majority of it goes there.
Right.
Now, who manages that and all that? That's a different
Mm-hmm.
discussion. May not be for today,
Yeah.
but this is this is how the NGOs get funded. This is how it works. So,
Mm.
and what else? What That was your question, right?
Yeah.
This
That's
is how
yeah. So
NGOs operate.
yeah, that's basically what I wanted to understand how NGOs operated. Thanks for explaining that, Adi. Um, so I Adi, I know you I know that you have been a VC for quite some time. You have been an investment principal for quite some number of years, and from that you sort of shifted gears and started focusing on NGOs. So what was that change? What was the wider change that you thought, oh, maybe I should just start focusing on NGOs? What sort of drove you to that decision? Can you just share with me?
So, when I was doing my job at the VC, my job would typically involve running behind
Mm.
entrepreneurs and asking them, "Hey, do you want funding?"
Right.
Right? Though the job is viewed or perceived very differently. That
Right.
is, people think that people will approach you for funding and you decide who to fund.
Correct.
Uh, Usually, when you like to fund somebody, those people already have 10 other people running after them to fund them. So you also have to join that race to fund those people
Oh,
from a
I see.
VC world,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
So
because
you
I
kind
this
of
is
get into,
so this is a little interesting to me. I mean, I always thought like you said, that's the perception we all have, right? When you talk
yeah,
about a VC, they say
yeah.
that, oh, that guy, there'll be a queue of people standing, trying to get an appointment with him so that he could fund their next Facebook or something, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. That is true, huh? By the way. There are, I mean, you will have, like, the funders are very little
right,
and people seeking funding are very large.
right.
So, as in terms of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So you will see that the supply demand is in such a way that the perception gets built in the way that you and I can think of it like
Right.
that.
Oh, okay.
It is not invalid, but
Okay.
what happens is in reality, when you want to fund somebody
Mm-hmm.
and you find them to be a really great investment to make,
Right.
right? You will also find automatically that there are two, three other investors who thought like you,
Oh, I see. Okay.
and you're all in the race to get into that company as an investment,
Right.
to make that
Right.
investment. So at the last mile, it is still a race to the finish.
Right. Okay.
Um, Anyway, that was on the VC front, and that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I mean, that was probably a
Mm-hmm.
very exciting phase of my career, if I may call it so.
Oh, I see.
um, I learned a lot of how do you invest into companies, how do companies really operate, how do you strategize for the long term,
Mm-hmm.
how do you look at it, how do you look at companies not as single units but as a portfolio of companies that you are
Mm-hmm.
actually investing into, so on and so forth.
Right.
uh, Over a period of time, i I kind of started looking at all of this as um, you know so what am I doing,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when the focus moved to me, I mean, after the excitement kind of subsided, you can say.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're kind of looking at what are you really doing, right?
Right.
What is it that you're really doing, and uh, how do you actually think of value
Right.
of the work that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the times, I think all of us as professionals who've been working for other companies uh, always encounter this dilemma that, hey, what is it that I am actually doing which is of value, man, here,
Right.
right? You actually ask yourself that question many times.
Right.
And while I was grappling with the answers to that question, the
Mm-hmm.
answer was obviously not very simple.
Mm-hmm.
um, Many things happened, and one of the major things that triggered my thought process in a particular direction was the December 2015 Chennai floods.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
when that happened,
Mm-hmm.
I uh, I was I was staying in a high-rise building. I had power backup. I lost power for 6 hours. I had
Okay.
water supply 24/7. Now, nobody in my house, in my family, or in my extended family
Mm-hmm.
even got remotely wet in the floods.
Right.
Right? Forget
Right.
forget any of the other problems.
Correct.
But by some stroke of luck, my number became the coordination number for Alvar Tirunagar and Valasarvakam area.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Some one tweet of mine went viral, and
Mm-hmm.
it became it went a different way, and my number was out there in public. People used to call me to fund people in this area. There are floods
Okay.
and people are affected, see what we can do. So I started going um, into the areas of this Valsarvakam and Virgambakam and Alvar Tirnagar areas,
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out people who are really stuck. So I used to get calls from US and Zambia and Namibia and all,
Wow.
saying, "Hey, my parents are stuck in this area. Can you please go and check them out?" So I had a notebook where I'd written down where,
Okay.
what is the address,
Right.
where did they come from, where was the call from, and I would go and check on these people. Right, they were old
Right.
people,
Right. Yeah.
and you would go and check on these people and communicate back saying, "Hey, no, these people are fine, nothing to worry."
Right.
And while I was doing all this, I also realized that there are people who have everything is washed away.
Right.
Everything that they had made in their lifetime, right,
Right.
is washed away.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am, who's sitting in one high-rise building, right, with nothing that has remotely affected me, right? And there are people who have had everything washed away, and I'm still trying to think of how can I fund people who are richer than me. You see the
Yeah, I
you
see.
see the parallel that I got it.
Yeah.
So the these people had no resources, and whatever resources they themselves were able to manage
Mm-hmm.
was washed away by floods, by just one flood. So this
Right.
was just 1 month of floods, and for me that was a um, uh, nothing kind of I didn't have a realization at that point,
Mm-hmm.
but I really felt a lot of turmoil within myself, saying, what is it that I'm really doing, right? What do I really have to continue doing something like this? And
Right.
what is it that the future of my career should look like? That
Right.
is how I kind of went into even IIT Patna for the
Oh, I see.
Incubation Center.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and from there, I came to Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
which for so in my head, right,
Right.
Mr. Premji became the model for what I was thinking.
Right.
Right, he became the symbol for what I was thinking. That,
Right.
see, here is a person
Mm-hmm.
who became so rich,
Mm.
and now he wants to help this. So in a way,
Right.
he was trying to give back to the society, right?
Right.
Though today, after so many years, I would say he's just doing his bit,
Right.
right?
Right.
He's not really. If you ask him, he will also say the same thing, I'm sure. But uh, that is exactly what I really wanted to be a part of. Saying this,
Mm-hmm.
there is inequity of wealth distribution in the country,
Mm-hmm.
right? People have no resources to very meager resources who form the majority of the country,
Right.
right? There was one survey recently which said if you earn more than 28,000 per month,
Mm-hmm.
uh, am I getting? Yes. If you earn 28,000 per month as a salary, you are in the top 1% of the country.
Mm.
The rest of the 99% earns less than 28,000 per month.
That number is mind-boggling, man. That number
Yeah.
is mind-boggling. My goodness.
So that was exactly where I was coming from, saying, hey, so if there is somebody who's got so much wealth and is trying to give it away, I really want to get in there and understand what this is.
Okay.
Right? And that is how Mr. Premji had this vision of putting it up as an institution. He
Right.
didn't want to just keep writing individual checks himself.
Right.
So he's institutionalized his giving. So he's created a philanthropic initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiatives,
I see.
where around 75 to 80 of us work.
Okay.
And our job is to go
Mm.
look at NGOs, understand what they do,
Mm.
uh, in a way that we we identify the risks associated with what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and see how well the program that they're doing we can support through the funds that Mr.
Right.
Premji has allocated for this purpose. And this is not coming from Wipro's CSR. Wipro CSR is
Oh,
something
so
different.
that is different, and this is different.
Yes,
I
that
see.
is different. This is different.
Okay.
This is Mr. Premji's personal wealth. Wipro CSR has a different. It comes from the profits that Wipro makes
Oh, I see.
as a
So,
company.
and with that, we have come to the end of our first part of my discussion with Adi about what is an NGO, what is happening in the NGO space in India, how are these NGOs run, and his interesting and inspiring story of his pivot from being a VC to become part of a greater effort to fund the NGOs and do good to the humanity. It was clearly a very interesting topic to talk about with Adi, and I like to thank Adi for his time. There are more interesting things that Adi and I discuss further. I will release them in the subsequent parts. I thank Anchor.fm for providing this wonderful podcast platform to host some really amazing podcasts, including mine. Don't forget to check out my other episodes about the job market in India during the pandemic and my discussion with an ambient music producer at anchor.fm/Karthik. I would also like to thank ISKCON for providing the intro music. You can listen to more such tunes in SoundCloud. Until next time, stay tuned, stay safe, catch you in the next one.